You guys, I'm so excited to welcome you back to a book club tonight. We are going to be working on chapter 4, which is all about Lent, because I cannot believe that Lent is about to start. You know, last time we really took a deep dive into Christmas and kind of that spiritual meaning behind it. And so today we're going to kind of, as we talked a little bit about that, the joys of the roller coaster, you kind of like build up to the season and you come back down. We're going to be building up now to the season of Easter as we celebrate Lent. So I have a special guest with me here today, Annie. Annie, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a bit?
Certainly. My name is Annie, and I am the writer and creative content manager of A Beautiful Camouflage Mess of a Life, which is a blog initially that started, let's say, about 7 years ago, and is currently on hiatus and has been as I started feeling called and drawn into parish ministry. So I am a proud Army wife. I have 3 kids, all younger, ages 9, 6, and 3. And I currently work in parish ministry. My husband is active duty Army, so we move around almost like clockwork every 2 years. And blogging and writing and creating content kind of helps continue to feed my soul as a form of continuity from one duty station to the next. So if you check out, we're currently up in Washington State at one of the major installations and heading to parts unknown this summer. So.
Wow, my friend Katie just moved. She's military as well. We live in North County, San Diego, right near Camp Pendleton. So a lot of my friends are military, so I get to join them virtually on their journeys. And my friend Katie, they just went to Greece for 2 years. They literally, like last week they arrived. And so it's been so fun to follow her Instagram journey of just being like, wow, trying to drive on these roads and trying to like just buy groceries and figure out how to do laundry. And even where they're staying in Greece, their biggest change for them is you can't flush toilet paper. You have to put it in a can next to the toilet. So it's just been amazing to see all these little,
wow, yeah,
all these just random things that, that we just completely different that she just adjusts to. So I have total respect for you guys who are military families, because that is, that's a lot of moving and a lot of change.
It is. And I like to say the one constant in my journey, I haven't always been practicing my Catholic faith, but the one after my reversion experience, the one constant in everything is finding Christ at Mass.
I love that.
No matter where we go.
I love that. Well, that's actually a great segue into our opening prayer. Thank you guys for joining us. I think we're on page 38. It's the start of your start of chapter 4. So you guys who are joining us tonight, you can follow along. And Annie, I'm going to turn it over to you to lead us in prayer.
Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Lord, the season of Lent calls for me to step away from the whirlwind that is my daily life and offers me the opportunity to focus, even if just for a few weeks, on my relationship with you. Lent is a time to pay more attention to prayer, charity, and fasting. Help me learn how to maximize the spiritual benefits of a Lent well lived, one beyond just avoiding chocolate. Lord, guide me in developing better habits for time spent with you. Please allow my prayer time and reading of the scriptures to be more meaningful while I spend less time indulging my vices and temptations. Lent is a quiet, penitent time for me to grow through prayer, self-sacrifice, and caring for others. Heavenly Father, open my heart to see how you want me to grow in each of these 3 ways. So much of my life feels like one day of exhaustion after the next. Help me to let go of all the excess, creating room for you and your wondrous love. Thank you for your merciful love and for providing this amazing prayerful time each year to grow in my faith. I am in awe every time I gaze upon the cross and contemplate the sacrifice, obedience, and unconditional love that put you there. As I draw closer to you on the cross, may I feel the love you have for me. May every page in this study bring me one step nearer to you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for doing that. You know, I've mentioned this before. Allison Gingras wrote all these beautiful prayers. I tend to write prayers that are like, God is great, God is good, let us thank him for our food, and do that. So, you know, we let her,
yes.
Right? Yeah. So we let Allison write all these prayers because she just has much more of that lyrical, just beauty that she can add. So thank you for leading us today.
Beautiful.
So I want to start off, you know, we've talked a lot about this cycle. You know, we've gone through Advent, we've gone through Christmas. We're currently in ordinary time right now. We are talking about ordinary time. We're going to wait until the big ordinary time hits. But we're in that very short period of ordinary time right now that is leading us up to Lent. And again, the nice thing we've talked about too with this being a cycle is it's that whole wash, rinse, repeat thing. You know, you can try things out for you one year that might work or might not work, and you can either keep them for the following year or you can let them go if they didn't work out. Plus, just as you change, as your spirituality changes, as your family situation changes, those needs are going to constantly change over time. So every year you have opportunities to revisit each one of these periods and make them whatever it is that you need them to be in order to live that season most spiritually and most deeply. So let's dive into Lent. You know, for you guys that are joining us, I want to hear in the comments, do you guys enjoy the season of Lent? You know, I'm asking because I do. So for me, like, the crazy of Christmas has finally ended. The new year has started, and we've kind of like picked up and we're just finding our stride. Like, I don't know, like after Christmas, I feel like I need most of the month of January just to kind of like recover and like get back into school mode, because that's what we do with young children in the house. And it's just been so busy. So for me, Lent brings that season of calm and quiet. So I want to hear in the comments below what you guys think of Lent and what it means to you. And while you type those, Annie, I want to know, what is your feelings on Lent?
I absolutely love it. I can't really say if the Easter Triduum is my favorite season or if Lent is my favorite liturgical season. I haven't yet figured out which one I love more. So I'm camp. Yes, let me, and I know we'll talk about this later, but let me tackle those 3 pillars of Lent, and knowing that every year it doesn't go the way I think it's going to go. But at the end of Lent, I look back and I go, whoa, I've grown with God in some aspect. So I love Lent.
Absolutely. It is, and you change and you are going to grow with it. So I want to talk about when Lent starts, because when we met last time for chapter 3, we talked about Christmas, and Christmas starts on December 25th or the 24th if you go to the Vigil Mass.
Right.
So Lent obviously is a lot different. You know, first, in order to in order to determine the start of Lent, I put some information up here for you guys. First, we have to determine, when does Lent actually start? So Lent, as you'll see on the slide here, it starts on the first Sunday following the first full moon after the spring equinox, that Paschal full moon. And if that's not muddy enough, you know, that's why I like just having a quick calendar where I just kind of go, hey, Alexa, when is Easter this year? I don't have to follow the moon cycle and try to manage it myself. But, you know, this is because—
Or Google.
It is, right? Yeah, Google's amazing at that. It's nice because we still follow those very, very rich Jewish traditions that we have. And that's because we're trying to stay tight to when Passover begins. So then, to determine when Lent itself begins, we count back 40 days. Now, technically, as you'll see on the screen here, it's actually 46, but we don't really count Sundays because since those are considered feast days, you can actually take a break from some of your Lenten promises. But we do that because Jesus fasted for 40 days in the desert. So we too are choosing to fast. So there's a little information for you if you hadn't been familiar previously with why does Easter move every year? Why can't we just pick like April 20th or something like that? And why is it 40 days that we celebrate the Lenten season? I always think it's interesting to like kind of keep that history, don't you think, Annie?
Yes. I would say one of my absolute favorite Catholic books, like in my top 5, would be Jesus and the Jewish Roots of the Eucharist by Dr. Brant Petrie. And that really connected the Jewish roots of so many of our celebrations and really helped me start to appreciate why we focus Lent during the time that we do, that it is very much connected to our Jewish roots. Yeah, which is important.
It is. I'm going to put a link to that book down below. I've read that book too, and it is so good. I loved the connection. I'm a history person, and so I love having that feeling that we're still attached to that. You know what I mean? That we're still reliving so many of these things that we used to. And because we're tying it to Passover, we're basically coordinating Holy Week with that Paschal full moon. And so we're celebrating the events of Jesus's passion, death, and resurrection under that same moon that he would have been under. And I just love that.
which kind of gives me chills to think about. I mean, because when we talk about even going to Mass, we aren't just reliving the Paschal mystery. We are entering into it, kind of what I tell my kids, kind of real time. And Lent coinciding with Passover and knowing what's coming, as you said, it's under the same full moon.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. So in addition to that full moon, there are some signs that Lent has started. I don't know, Annie, if you've seen this trend or any of you guys who are joining us tonight, but I love seeing hashtag instead of like hashtag on social media. I think it's just so fun. And I love too that it's actually, I'm in my 40s, so I can't think of myself as like the young generation anymore. But I love seeing the younger generation out there, sharing their ashes like this. I think it's really cool. And we put our ashes on because it's a sign of penance. You'll see that purple color coming out because it's a penitent color. It's also, purple is the color of mourning. And so we'll often see that during like funeral masses. And we do that during Lent because we're anticipating Christ's pain. We're anticipating the suffering that he has on the cross, knowing that brilliant white of redemption of Easter is going to come. It's not here yet, but it's coming. Right. Now we do get a break from that purple on that 4th Sunday of Lent. That's when we celebrate, like that you'll see those rose tones come out. And I always say this wrong, Annie. So if you can do this better, it's like Laerte, Laetare. Have you heard that one? Oh, I think we lost your audio, Annie. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there we go. You're back.
Okay. I've heard it Laetare.
Laetare. Okay, thank you. I am like the queen. Everyone has like their issues in life, and mine is like mispronouncing words I've heard 5,000 times. And it's funny because when my son would read, he would be like, "Mom, like, no, that's literally not how you say it." Gosh, I'm sorry. So go with pronunciation. I'm not even going to attempt to butcher that one again. But that's our point. We're halfway through Lent, and it's our time for rejoicing. So Annie, I want to know about your ash tags. I want to know, what does the start of Lent, what does Ash Wednesday mean to you and anybody in your home?
So with my family, with the kids, it's the day we go get ashes on our forehead. We go get dirty on our forehead. Like, I don't know if it has much significance for them at this point, except Mom says we're going to church. While I know it's not necessarily a holy day of obligation, for me, it's important. And I'm a little disappointed when they read the other or have the other prayer that's read, but I still cling to you are from dust and to dust you shall return. And for me, Ash Wednesday is that audible reminder.
Yes.
When I hear that one. I think the other one is repent and turn to the gospel or something like that. But I prefer, I guess, the more morbid reminder that this world, and I've written about this for various outlets, this world is fleeting. It's eternity we should be living for. And Ash Wednesday is really where I focus on. I'm hearing it from church. I'm seeing it. I'm receiving the ashes as that reminder. So it's a nice way to pull together my beliefs and my values and my faith into a very tangible way.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've participated. I'm pretty sure we've participated in the hashtag.
So creative.
But for the most part, it was amazing for me when my mother-in-law, my husband and his family are Methodist, and they came out to visit us in Hawaii when after my son had just been born, and that was really a time of the beginning of my reversion. And so I said, "Oh, we got to go to Mass." And I'm pretty sure at that point, I thought it was a holy day of obligation. Yeah. So I'm going, I got to get to Mass, got to receive my ashes. And I looked at my mother-in-law and I said, you're welcome to come too. And she goes, we do it too, right? And I went, no, didn't know that. So, and then it was so nice. We received our ashes, went on a hike there on Oahu, and it was a really neat experience because I had 3 different people on that hike come up and go, "Excuse me, you have something." And it gave me an opportunity to say, I know, this is my reminder that someday we will hopefully all be with God.
I love that. I have to share, I found out, it was shortly after we got married, that Ash Wednesday was not a holy day of obligation, because we went grocery shopping and there was a clergyman outside the grocery store, our local Vons. It's our grocery store chain out here. And he was like distributing ashes outside the grocery store. And I was like, oh, that's like, oh, you can't do that.
What?
We like called our church, right? Because like I was in my early 20s, that period of time when you're still like very righteous about everything. And the very kind receptionist was like, she's like, "Oh yeah, isn't that great?" And I was like, huh, I didn't know that was okay. And so it just kind of changed my perspective. Plus, oh my gosh, what a beautiful way to evangelize, to be out there giving people ashes if they want them as they leave the grocery store. So that was my first time learning as well, because, we always went as kids and I just figured that's what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Part of the thing. So I have not gotten mine at the grocery store yet, but that is a possibility should that come up one day.
Right. Exactly. If you're in doubt and in need.
Yep. Yeah. Head to Vons. So I want to talk a little bit about the pillars of Lent. Now, for those of you guys who have finished reading the book, we talk a lot about these in the chapter, but there's 3 main pillars, 3 main areas that we talk about during Lent. We talk about prayer, we talk about fasting, and we talk about almsgiving. And again, just like we talked about, well, why does Easter start when it does? Why does Ash Wednesday start when it does? I want to talk a little bit about the why behind each one of these pillars. So we're going to dive into that. So first off, I want you to think about all the things that fill your day. I want you to think of all of the things that fill your day, maybe to quote even Matthew Kelly, that prevent us from being the best version of ourselves. I have to share. So one of my girlfriends does a word of the year, and I've never done it. It's not really my thing. But this year I was like, I'm going to do a word of the year. And I picked my own. And I chose the word squirrel. And you can see I've even got it on my bracelet, because I am super guilty of doing something and all of a sudden squirrel, and I lose that attention, lose that focus. And I'm super guilty of that. My son is too, so he has a bracelet as well. And it's just such it's a funny reminder, but it's a family thing now where one of us is we'll just be doing something, and if we notice the other person wander off, we're like, squirrel, you need to focus. And I have squirrels all day long that, like Matthew Kelly says, they prevent me from being the best version of myself. So, maybe there's things that, like, maybe every time you walk into the kitchen, you have to grab a snack. And maybe when you're stressed out, you tend to put off the things you need to do instead of turning to prayer. Or maybe you zone out on Netflix instead of tuning into your family. There's, you turn to trashy novels instead of really talking with your spouse about how you guys can make your marriage better. There's all these different things that we do that prevent us from being that best version of ourselves. And what's nice about Lent is during Lent, we have time to really focus on and try to change these habits. We can pray more, we can fast more, and we can give more. Because when we let go of those material things, we can find more time in our day for meaningful connections with the people that are around us. And honestly, even with the things that we do, we can engage with them in a more meaningful way. And we can find those moments of strength because we've cleared all that extra clutter away. We can even find that by letting go of some of those material things or emotional things, that now we have that space that we can consciously donate either our time or our talents or our treasures in a way that we previously thought that we weren't able to do so. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And I agree with you.
Yay!
Yes. It's all things that I teach. I am an RCIA coordinator for our local parish right now. And my poor catechists, because they hear this right as we start Lent every year, I'm like, let's go deeply into Lent and these three pillars. And I really try to encourage them to focus one each week. So 1 week, let's hit prayer hard. Let's hit fasting hard. And then almsgiving. And we've got children from second grade through adults. And so I'm like, let's figure out how this looks for all of our ages.
Yeah.
Because what's going to work for me as, in my upper 30s and a mom and busy life is going to be vastly different than what's going to resonate with my kiddos in their young age. They're just going to be like, well, can't do this because mom said I can't.
Yes.
Let's make it meaningful for you guys as well as my own thing that I'm doing.
Yeah, it's like the year my son gave up Chuck E. Cheese for Lent. It's actually a gift from mom that you don't want to go for Lent, that's what you're choosing,
Exactly, right? Thank you. Right.
The whole point of us making that space and letting go of Chuck E. Cheese is, and I love seeing even like those bumper stickers on cars where, it's got the he is greater than I, because it makes me think of this verse, he must increase as I decrease. And this is such an important thing because the more we put ourselves forward with the things we want, the things we need, the more we're really pushing God away and saying, you know what, I've got this. I don't need you. I've got this. I just saw a slide the other day, not a slide, I'm sorry, like a news article, and it was talking about self-help books. And it said that the rate that self-help book purchases is happening right now, it was like astronomical. It was almost like, that perfect example of a J curve, because everyone is coming on this self-reliance. I'm going to do whatever it is that I need to do to make me happy. And that's almost the opposite of what John is telling us here in chapter 3, because the more we tend to rely on ourselves and do everything ourselves, we're honestly, that's even more and more and more, we're pushing God to the side going, again, I've got this by myself. So that's what we want to talk about now as we start diving into some of these pillars. We're going to start at the top with prayer. Prayer is something I think we all try to do more of, and we try to strive for. I think even those of us that have these amazing prayer lives always feel like we can be better and we can grow with it. So we're going to start with this one. Now, prayer is powerful. A fervent prayer, though, is even more powerful. And I wonder how many of you, leave a comment below, would consider yourselves a fervent prayer. Prayer, a person who fervently prays.
Right.
I have a friend, yeah, right? Like, does that sound right? I have a friend who gets up in the morning and she watches the daily mass online and then she prays the rosary. And I love that about her. I'm also a morning person, but that is completely different than how I spend my morning. I do the real quick, as I get out of bed, God be with me today. And that's literally my prayer.
Yeah.
Literally, it's short. And
Yep.
I'm not saying that that's great. I don't have the mental fortitude, let's do that, to sit down the way she does. And I wish I did. I wish I had that. So what I try to do during Lent is really focus on adding 1 decade of the rosary a day. And that may not seem like a lot, because maybe some of you watching this, you have these strong prayer lives and that is your focus, and that's amazing and that's wonderful. And that's how we're all different. But for me, just adding that 1 little decade is a lot. And it gives me that opportunity to slow down a little bit and find that time each day just to sit. I do like that rote prayer, and to focus a little bit more. Annie, how would you describe your prayer life or prayer time during Lent?
So during Lent, I feel like there is more of an intentional focus on it. So really quickly, going back to the he must increase, I must decrease. I've never sent it to my blog subscribers, but I've developed when you turn on your phone, I have a wallpaper right there. Yes. That just is my constant reminder anytime I turn on my phone that he must increase, I must decrease. And like you, I am not good at waking up in the morning and devoting a lengthy period of time in prayer. It's more, God, please be with me this day. This day is yours. And then I like to, during Lent, I find myself making those surges of the heart that I believe it's St. Therese of Lisieux wrote about. It could be St. Teresa of Avila, but I think it's St. Therese. I find those surges of the heart to be more intentional. So as I'm going throughout my day, I might not be praying the rosary or a set prayer, but I find myself during Lent taking that moment more. If I'm driving around saying, Lord, here are my problems, or God, what else do you want me to do for you today? And so it could be done in the car pickup line. I just find it more intentional.
I like that.
And yeah.
No, I like it. And it's important. I think the word I latched onto a little bit that you were talking about is it's intentional. It's that purposeful change that you make to try to add something or to try to just focus when you're in that moment of prayer, because sometimes it could be so distracting. I pray a lot at night, and it never fails because I do it after I climb into bed. And I say my nighttime prayers, and as I'm kind of dialoguing with God about my prayers, invariably my mind starts to do this, and then like 10 minutes later I'll fall asleep. So it's a good opportunity to be more intentional. It's funny, I had a girlfriend one time tell me, well, it's like, how sweet is it when you hold your son and he's talking to you and he falls asleep in your arms? That's what it is for God. I'm like, well, that might be what it is sometimes, but when it happens night after night and I fall asleep, that's just turning into like a rude conversationalist, It's not nice anymore when you fall asleep every time we have a conversation.
Yes. Right? Well, and that's where I'm a firm believer that, anytime we're turning our hearts to God, that is prayer. And it's not to say that there's not room for the rote prayers. And I'm assisting our children's faith formation coordinator as she prepares children for their first communions. And we were doing a parent session. And what I explained to them is, look at these prayers, and many of the parents themselves, they know the prayers, but they haven't worked with their children at this point to learn all of them. And I said, look at prayer. That interaction that we have, that personal connection that we have with God, but these standard prayers. So for example, our Lenten objective this year for prayer is going to be praying a decade of the rosary together every night as a family. And that's going to look differently for the 3-year-old than the 9-year-old.
Yeah.
But what I told them is, what I hope with my children is by knowing these prayers, we are setting the table for them to show up to that table and to have that personal communication with God, where they're talking about whatever they want to tell him that's on their heart, but also reciprocating by listening to what he's going to say. But those rote prayers, those are the plate, they're the tablecloth, they're the plates, they're the knives and the forks and the spoons for them to show up and have their cup of coffee, even though they don't have coffee.
I know, I love that. That is such a great analogy, as you know, talking about it in terms of tableware. I really like that. Yeah. I love a good analogy. So thank you for that one. And I'm glad they're not having coffee. I see too many kids drinking like those Starbucks, you know, those glass containers that come in like the 6-pack of like the mochas, and I'm like, oh my gosh, kids are sugared enough. But
right.
If you like to give your kids them, you have with it. But yeah, that's
and that's the thing. I'm guilty of giving them stuff, but they're not sitting at a kitchen table yet with a cup of coffee.
Having a cup of coffee. So. You know, I get it. So let's talk a little bit about fasting. You know, fasting is so powerful, and there's so many examples in scripture about this, you guys. There's actually, I don't know, trivia question here for you. I should play like the Jeopardy music in the background, but I'll give you a second. Any guesses? And Annie, I'm going to ask you this too. Any guesses on how many times fasting appears in scripture?
Do you want me to wait?
Nope. Go ahead. Give me your random guess. Unless you know. Go ahead.
I do know. That's the thing.
Okay.
I do know.
So hopefully you're going to say 70?
Yes.
At least 70.
That was going to be my answer. At least 70. I thought it was 73.
Okay. So
but I might be wrong on that.
Okay. We're going to go with 73. I found a couple different spots, and that's why I always say like there's more than 70, but 73 sounds even more specific. But there's over 70 examples of fasting.
I don't know for sure.
I know, right? Well, and sometimes, you know, it may be fasting, but it's not exactly called out as that word. So, you know, you never know. You know, fasting was something that was just a part of everyday life. It was something you did in times of need. You know, whereas now maybe in times of need, our first thing is to like text our girlfriend and be like, oh my gosh, I need you. You know, I got to tell you what's going on. The first action back then what people would do is they'd be like, oh my gosh, this is happening and I need to fast. So here's just a couple examples that I very quickly pulled up. You know, Moses fasted for 40 days before he wrote down all 10 commandments, right? Before we had this big job, he fasted to prepare himself. Esther and her family fasted before she went to the king to ask for him to intervene. And Paul and Barnabas fasted before approaching the elders. Now, the one word I want to point out in each one of these that you'll see is the word before. Because people are using fasting as a way to prepare themselves for something big that's coming up. And again, this is important when you think back to the he must increase and I must decrease, because in that moment of fasting, as you decrease that reliance on whatever it is you're fasting from, because I know we all choose to fast differently from different things, you're creating that space for God. You know, and I want to share this. One year for Lent, I gave up nitpicking my husband. I have an oldest child tendency to want to correct things and to make things just so. And my husband's the most lax guy in the world. I always tell people like, I could never be married to me, but somehow he does and he's happy with it. But I still will be like little things like, can you get your shoes out of the hallway? Can you not bite on your spoon? Like just normal little things like that. This poor man who has worked all day, like heaven forbid, he just wants to come home, take his shoes off and eat dinner with us. So I really worked that Lent on just consciously biting my tongue. And I don't do it out of meanness. I don't do it out of spite. I want to clarify that. You know, it's sometimes it just comes out. It just comes out. And so I really worked hard that Lent on not saying anything. And honestly, I found that God took those moments and our marriage we just had so many happy little tender moments between us that filled that space. And so, you know, maybe fasting from food isn't your thing. I'm not a foodie. I'll tell you that right now. If I could take a pill in the morning and be done with it, I would. So fasting from food is not hard for me because I kind of indirectly feel like I do that all day. I only eat when I'm hungry. Fasting from nitpicking him was a very, very big challenge. And it was great how he filled us back up. Annie, how about you? Did you have any good examples of things you fasted from?
So oddly enough, yeah, I'm kind of the opinion with fasting. I have learned recently about more thought behind fasting from a certain food or from a certain something that you're consuming diet-wise. But I'm the kind of person, if I make a commitment, I am going to see it through. And so there are many years that, yes, I'm going to give this up. And provided it's not making everybody else around me miserable, I will see it through to Easter Vigil or Easter Sunday because I committed to that. Yeah. And what I noticed is I was in it more for the sake of proving that I could do it rather than turning my heart to God during those moments. Yep. And so one year I was going, I'm going to give up what I desire the most every day. And so one day it was, I really want to go. I just remember driving through the Dunkin' drive-through in Georgia, getting something for my kids and saying, I am not getting anything because that's what I really want. Lord, I am offering this to you.
I love
and
that.
Then a few days later, it was something else that I think I wanted seconds. Like I wanted more than I knew I should probably eat. And I went, no, Lord, I am offering you this desire to you. I am not going to overindulge. And that by far and away has been my most fruitful experience of fasting. You know, I want to spend money on this. I'm not doing that today because it is a day in Lent. And that is what my heart really desires today. And God, I'm going to give you that desire instead.
I love that.
Far and away, it changed my outlook on fasting in general. So that's how I approach fasting. I give up what I really want.
I like that. You know, and I think when you give up that one specific thing each day, you know, it does make it hard. You know, I remember one year, you know, like when we first started, you know, going through Lent, you know, I was kind of lackadaisical about it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give up sweets. Well, again, you know, you think like if you ever worked in the corporate world or even not, like you hear about having SMART goals, you know, they're specific, measurable, attainable, reliable, I think, and timely. And giving up sweets is like none of those things because it's like, well, there's candy, but then there's also like sugar and ketchup. Like, you know, where does that line fall? Like where does the word sweets really, really go? You know, and I like how you said, you know, you just chose one specific thing each day because again, you're bringing back that measurability, that specificity to just that item that you're choosing each day. And you're choosing each day something that's really hard. You know, if you give up, like, I had a girlfriend who, you know, she gave up caffeine. And she said like the first 2 weeks were impossible. She had headaches and she's like, by the end, I didn't want it. And she never went back, you know what I mean? So she clearly created a lot of room. But again, I love yours. I've never heard of doing that. You're keeping it hard, like every day. Good for you. Good for you.
And what I noticed, so there are some years since that particular year, there's some years that all I can do is just give up one thing.
Yeah.
Like I need to just, I'm turning this particular, what I like to term my addictions, to God. And I'm going to really tackle that with his help and with his grace during Lent. But that particular Lent that I gave up my heart's desire every day, my different heart's desire every day, I realized at the end of Lent, I didn't feel like a failure if I had not succeeded, because every day I had succeeded with whatever was pummeling me from the rest of life. And I kind of have gone back to doing that, especially because of the pandemic. Like, I don't know what's going on. So every day just, okay, one thing that I really want that one day, because I am also much like your friend. All right, I've given it up. Not going to go back.
Nope, not.
So,
It's neat how, having done this before, so I've done, a similar presentation like this at some churches and with some groups. And one of the most interesting comments that came up about fasting from a woman, she said, I have a tendency to listen to music that I know I shouldn't be listening to. And she said that I like to work out. And when I work out, this, I like that strong rhythm. She's like, but the words are definitely not things I should be choosing. So she said, I give that up for Lent. She's like, but what's crazy is I bring it right back Easter Monday.
Yeah.
I had never thought about it from that perspective of, if you give up something that maybe isn't good in your life, like, kind of giving it that pause of, do I really let this back in? Or how much of this do I let back in? You know what I mean? And so,
right.
I don't have an answer on that at all. Again, I love these conversations we all have because it sometimes just changes things, how you see it, or gives you a different perspective on something you haven't thought about. So there's some more food for thought for you guys about fasting. Let's jump into almsgiving. And I want to quote Friar Tuck, right? That's his name. I always want to call him Friar Tuck for some reason, but like minus the R, he's not driving anything. From a good old fashioned Robin Hood here. So, I have this vision of that friar out there, with his little bell, and I forget what, like we always watched the cartoon version. So I think he was like a raccoon or something like that. And he would, ringing alms for the poor. I'm going to guess that every one of us on the call tonight are part of the people he was speaking to in looking for alms, because honestly, we are part of that 1% that can have that opportunity. I'm not going to read these off to you, but here's some very basic stats that I ran. They're all current as of last year. So that would have been 2020 that these came from. This was the year before last, actually. And just to share what other people go through. And it's funny because I don't talk to any of my girlfriends where we're like, oh my gosh, we're just so rich. We're always, we're rolling in it and we've got enough. But I'll tell you, there's never a time where we don't have the opportunity to purchase fresh fruit if we're hungry, or to put gas in our car, and there's times where I'm like, oh, we're not going to go out for dinner tonight because we need to scale back. But I don't have to choose between feeding myself or feeding my children. And I'm fortunate. And I honestly, I thank God for that opportunity. But almsgiving is an opportunity for us each Lent to really relook at what we are doing and what we are giving. Obviously we should be giving all year long and doing things all year long, but this is kind of that wake up and take a look and see what else we can do. It brings it more of front of mind instead of letting it be that afterthought. In the comments, I would love to hear from all of you on different ways that you give. How do you share what you have, whether it's during Lent or it's just during the year itself? And, in my family, we try to make almsgiving more of a pillar in our house. So, for the year, what we do is we do sponsor a child through World Vision. He's got the same birthday as my son. And so it's really neat because we keep his picture on our fridge and we update it each year when we get the new photos of him. And so it's been fun for us to see him grow and to be seeing, kind of where that donation we make is. But during Lent, we do something a little bit different. My son has always had a soft spot for the homeless. Like when he was like 4 years old, we were learning about patron saints, and he was like, "I'm going to be the patron saint of the homeless when I get
Aww.
older." I just thought that was so cute. But he still has that connection, if you will, to really wanting to do something. So during Lent, we pack the giving bags. We live in San Diego, and I mean, I say this not totally tongue in cheek, but it's if you're going to be homeless, this is, climate wise, probably one of the best places to be because of the weather. Right. You don't have to worry about the snow or anything like that. However, our winters still get cold. So, we pack a lot of those, we buy gallon size bags and we just fill them with toothbrushes and toothpaste and, like hand sanitizers. And my son always wants to put a game in there. So we always put in like a deck of cards or dominoes, because he's like, well, they're going to be bored. And I just think that's so sweet that it is. He's coming from there, right? I think it's really cute. And so we just keep all these bags in the back of my car. And whenever we come to a stop sign and there's someone out there, we just hand them one of the bags. And it's it's such a connection because it's so much more personal. You know what I mean? We always say a prayer for them,
Yes.
but to actually make, that moment when you're stopped and you make the eye contact and you smile and you wish them the best, has been very, very fruitful for us as a family. Annie, what do you guys normally do for Almsgiving?
So I like to say Lent usually occurs right before moving season for the military. The military moves every year, but our family, we move every 2 years.
Okay.
And so those years that we're preparing to move, so for example, this upcoming Lent, we will probably give more it becomes a spring cleaning, essentially. So the extra clothes will go to the homeless outreach center at the parish I work at. Any extra food items, pantry good items, will go to people that need it, typically within the military community, because there are some large families with very small income brackets. And then on the alternating years, I'm not very comfortable talking about specific things that we do to give, just because of that whole what the right hand does, don't let the left hand know.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So it's one of those, it's hard for me to discuss it without a lot of stutters, for lack of a better word. But on those alternating years, last year, my son was working through his Cub Scout rank, or his advancement, whatever it's called. And so what we did is we made sure, similar to I call them the blessing bags, we did breakfasts for the homeless shelter that my parish hosts throughout the winter months. And so we did a sack breakfast and we dropped all those off. And it was something my family could manage doing by ourselves because we weren't able to meet as a den and all that fun stuff. So it really kind of depends on what's going on that particular year. One year, we, instead of giving to the bishop's annual appeal or whatnot, what I did is I held off. I get requests for money from various religious orders throughout the year. And so that Lent, I compiled all those requests, and once a week, one of those organizations got the money that I otherwise might have given to the bishop's annual appeal.
Yeah, that's a beautiful idea.
It kind of depends on the year.
Yeah. And and that comes back to even the very, not the very, but one of the very early slides we looked at, which was that pie chart, and how we talked about it's seasonal. This is a cycle that we repeat every year, and depending on where we are physically, emotionally, financially, it's going to change and it's going to vary. And I think for me that took a lot of getting used to, because I like having a pattern. I like having a set routine, and letting go of this is exactly what we do each Lent was a let go for me. But again, that's just part of that spiritual growth and spiritual nourishment that I think we can all benefit from over time. So,
I will also say one year I attacked two prongs at once. I fasted because I have more so had a potty mouth. I was horrible. And so one year I looked at my husband, I said, I am going to charge myself a quarter every time I say insert swear word. And then at the end of Lent, we're going to give all of that to Operation Rice Bowl, because that was huge in that parish. And sure enough, they got a pretty penny from my family, because I was tackling one thing. I'm not going to do this. And of course, that amps up the stress.
It does.
And so, so I would say you could even tackle two of those pillars in one fell swoop on a certain year.
Efficiency.
Yes.
I wanted to share. So this is something we started when my son was very, very young. And it's something we still continue doing, even though he's getting older. And every family does this differently, and Annie, I like how you brought up, it's the whole left hand letting the right hand not know. In our family, we do openly share what we're doing for Lent. And I find for us that works because it gives us accountability to each other. So we actually fill out this little Lent promise card. I'm going to put a link to it below here for you guys. And we fill this out, like usually like on Tuesday evening. So we do like a little Mardi Gras party at our house, just us. Sometimes we'll have a few friends over, but we'll sit down and we'll fill this out on Tuesday. So that way, come Wednesday morning, like we can hit the ground running. We already know exactly what we're doing. And then we put them on the fridge. Now, what's really neat is I keep these year after year. So it's really neat to go back from a historical perspective and see what are those things that we gave up 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago versus what we're doing today. What are those actions? How have those actions changed? And obviously, like from a parent perspective, it's really adorable to like see my sons when he was 2 and it's just like crayon everywhere, or like when he was 4, I think it was, when he gave up Chuck E. Cheese, and to see his growth. But it's even better to see our own. Like I remember one of the first years we did this, I wrote that for praying, we were going to start saying grace before meals, because that was like a huge thing. We didn't do that. I grew up as a casual Catholic. We went to Mass on Sundays, and my husband grew up with no faith. So this was not a part of either one of our routines. You know what I mean? And so making that practice part of our routine, not only was it something we honestly forgot the majority of the time, but when we did remember to do it that Lent, it felt awkward. Whereas now it feels awkward to not do it. If we sit down, or if it's one of those meals where like especially with Mexican, where like we've got like, we do it more buffet style. So you go up to the stove and you fill everything up. That's harder. And so sometimes we'll sit down, oh my gosh, we forgot to pray. And it's a big thing now. And so we've really changed a lot. So I encourage you guys, if it works for you, try writing down what your Lenten promises are that you want to make. If you're open to sharing them, obviously like this, and or even just write them down for yourself. You don't have to publicly put them up on the refrigerator. But by starting off Ash Wednesday, like legitimately knowing what it is you want to do and don't want to do, it's really going, I think, to enrich your Lenten season. Annie, anything you want to add?
And I would say that in regard to this, in our family, we openly, like you said, we openly discuss, Mom's giving this up. What are you doing? Because it not only offers accountability, but I am a firm believer that our children need to also see us struggling as parents, and see how, and I don't know if it's just kind of my clinical background where, coaching families and the training that I've had is they need to see that we're real people too. And so when they are struggling, they can turn to, well, I know Mom has gone through this and this is how she worked through it. Or even say, just in the middle of Lent, Mom, I know I gave up Coke for Lent. Do you think this one time? Like, dude, I know it's hard. Wait for Sunday. You can have it on Sunday. And that's where, our family, we try to keep it real. We try to keep it open within our group, our family, just because we need that encouragement of, I'm going to do this. And what's really fun, so because my husband's not Catholic, he's like, I don't have to give anything up. You guys enjoy that. But it's really neat to see how he supports the kids, even when they're going, man, I really want that dessert that you guys are having. And he goes, well, we haven't openly eaten dessert in front of them when they've happened to give that up. Yes. But they'll say something like, man, I really want dessert after dinner. Well, no, we all gave that up for Lent. And it's really fun to see my husband try to give them that encouragement, that extra, hey, buddy, I know it stinks right now, but and I kind of look at it, if you're the age of reason, if you're going through sacramental prep, like that's where we really do start to hone in on, okay, you've received your sacraments. Now this is whatever you give up, that's what we're going to help you through with Lent. And I have been known to discourage my oldest from giving up something that I think would have been too much for him to give up for a full Lent as well, because it goes back to, I don't want him to think of Lent as a failure.
Yes.
If he struggles more than he's able to struggle.
Yes.
So being able to know what they're trying to give up and then letting them see what we're trying to fast from, or adding that extra prayer, or prayer time. Yeah, I know we're tired, but we need to give God our attention and our love.
Yeah. So I like that.
It's important.
It is, because you don't want it to be, Lent is a challenging time, but you don't want it to be something that you're setting yourselves or other people up for failure, especially at a young age.
Right.
I like that a lot.
Yes.
So, I hope we've given all of you who have joined us here tonight just a little bit more food for thought. I hope you've gained maybe some new ideas, both from Annie and I or from each other in the comments, on different ways that you can pray, that you can fast, and that you can give through those 3 pillars during this Lenten season. And we definitely look forward to seeing you again as we approach chapter 5. I can't believe that'll be our more than halfway point in this book. There's only 7 chapters, so I guess technically we're already halfway through the book. But I look forward to seeing you guys coming up soon with another special guest. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is on here. If you have not picked up your copy of the book yet, there's a short little link there that'll take you right to the book on Amazon. You can pick it up either on your Kindle or on in print. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon in a few weeks to talk Easter in Trinwim. Take care.